On a crisp November afternoon in the heart of Chicago, Donald Trump, dressed in a long, dark coat and a bold red tie, was strolling down the iconic Michigan Avenue. He had come to the city for a business meeting, but instead of taking a direct route back to his hotel, he decided to take a leisurely walk and soak in the vibrant energy of the city. As he approached a busy corner near Millennium Park, something unusual caught his eye, making him come to a sudden stop. There, sitting on the cold pavement, leaning against a building, was a woman who appeared to be struggling. Her clothing was worn and frayed, and her hands trembled as she held a cardboard sign that read, "Veteran in Need. Please help." Trump paused for a moment, taken aback by the sight. Despite the bustling crowd moving around him, he couldn't shake the image of her weary face. Ignoring the hurried footsteps of pedestrians, he walked over to her. His presence in the busy city street didn't go unnoticed, drawing curious glances from those around them. "Excuse me, ma'am," Trump asked gently, "what's your name?" The woman looked up, startled by his sudden approach. She hadn't expected anyone to take notice, especially not someone like Donald Trump. "It's Teresa," she said quietly, her voice hesitant. "Teresa Hensley." "Teresa," Trump repeated, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "Are you a veteran?" "Yes, sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I served in the army for 12 years. I got injured overseas, and since then, things have been tough." Trump nodded thoughtfully, listening intently to her words. The weight of her situation seemed to strike him deeply. He could hardly believe that someone who had once served her country so bravely was now in such dire circumstances. "Why are you out here?" Trump asked, a note of concern in his voice. "Don't you have somewhere to stay?" Teresa lowered her head, her eyes filled with pain. "I lost my apartment months ago. I couldn't keep up with the rent. I've been trying to get back on my feet, but it's hard." Trump felt a deep sense of empathy as he absorbed her words. It was hard to fathom that someone who had served her country was now left to survive on the streets. He knew he couldn't just walk away without doing something to help. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out his phone, and turned back to her. "Teresa, stay right here," he said with determination. "We're going to make things right." Trump walked a few steps away from Teresa and dialed a number. It didn't take long for his longtime assistant, Margaret, to pick up on the other end. "Margaret," Trump said swiftly. "I need you to find the nearest hotel with available rooms, and I need a doctor who can give a quick checkup. Make it urgent." "Understood, Mr. Trump," Margaret responded immediately, her voice steady and calm. Trump returned to Teresa, who was now watching him with a blend of confusion and cautious hope in her eyes. "Help is on the way," he reassured her with a gentle smile. "But first, let's get you something warm to eat." Trump flagged down a nearby street vendor and purchased a hot bowl of soup and a sandwich. Teresa accepted the food with trembling hands, eating slowly as her body shook from the cold. As she ate, Trump began to ask her about her life, her time in the army, her family, and how she ended up in such a difficult situation. Teresa shared her story, the deployments, the friends she had lost, and the injury that had ended her career. She explained how the transition to civilian life had been far more difficult than she had ever anticipated. Just as they were finishing the meal, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. Margaret had worked quickly. A professional-looking driver stepped out, holding open the door. "Teresa," Trump said, offering his hand to help her stand. "This is for you. We're taking you to a safe place." Teresa hesitated, her voice trembling as she asked, "Why are you doing this for me, Mr. Trump? You don't even know me." Trump looked her squarely in the eyes, his expression kind yet firm. "Because someone should have done it a long time ago." The SUV whisked them away to a nearby luxury hotel, where the staff, prepped by Margaret, greeted Teresa as if she were royalty. She was escorted to a top-floor suite, where a hot shower, fresh clothes, and a warm bed were waiting for her. A doctor arrived soon after to examine her, providing the necessary treatment for her health issues and offering advice on how to regain her strength. Trump remained close by, ensuring that everything was handled smoothly. Meanwhile, Margaret had been in touch with Veterans United Support Services, a nonprofit dedicated to helping homeless veterans reintegrate into civilian life. Within the hour, a representative named Lisa arrived at the hotel to meet Teresa. "Teresa," Lisa said warmly, sitting down beside her. "We're here to help you with housing, job training, and any other assistance you may need. You're not alone anymore." Tears welled up in Teresa's eyes as she looked at Trump, who had remained quietly in the background. "I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Trump," she said softly. Trump stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to thank me. You've earned this a long time ago." The next morning, Teresa had a renewed sense of hope. Veterans United had arranged temporary housing for her, and Trump's foundation would cover her rent for the first year. He even gave her a check to help with any immediate expenses. As Trump was about to leave, Teresa called out to him. "Mr. Trump," she said, her voice stronger now. "You've changed my life in ways I can't express. Thank you so much." Trump smiled warmly and replied, "Teresa, you're going to do great things. Just promise me one thing." "I will," she said with determination in her voice. "I'll pay it forward." "I will," Teresa said with a newfound determination in her voice. Her eyes sparkled with resolve, the weight of the promise settling within her heart. "I'll pay it forward." It was more than just words, it was a pledge to take the opportunities she had been given and use them to make a difference in the world, just as someone had made a difference for her. The spark of hope that had been ignited within her had now transformed into a steady flame, one that would guide her forward. Trump, standing nearby, nodded with quiet approval. He could see the change in her, the strength that had resurfaced after everything she had been through. It was a moment of true empowerment, a moment of profound humanity. He knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter for Teresa, one where she would not only regain her footing but soar beyond the struggles of her past. With the promise in the air, Trump turned and walked toward the hotel exit. He stepped out into the bustling city streets, his thoughts filled with the image of Teresa's bright future ahead. As the noise of the city surrounded him, he felt a quiet, inner satisfaction that wasn't about recognition or accolades, it was the satisfaction of knowing that in a matter of hours, he had played a part in changing one life for the better. As he moved through the city, back into the fast-paced world of meetings and obligations, Trump couldn't help but reflect on how quickly the course of a life could be altered with just a small act of kindness. For Teresa Hensley, the weight of hardship that had burdened her for so long had been lifted, replaced by a sense of possibility and hope. The road ahead, once dark and uncertain, now stretched out before her, filled with opportunities, potential, and a future that she could now look forward to with confidence.